Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mahtabuddin, lecturer of economics at the University of Dhaka and research economist at SAIM. Let me welcome you all to the first organization of the Bay of Bengal Economic Dialogue 2021. We had an excellent keynote session before the launch. And after the launch, this organization is titled Digital Connectivity and E-Commerce. The session will be chaired by Dr. Pashraj Pandey, Chairman, South Asia Watch on Trade and Economics and Environment, SAWTI, Nepal. We have some eminent panelists. We have Ms. Maliha Qadir, founder and managing director, Shahoj Limited, Bangladesh. We have Ms. Deepali Gadatke, founder and business owner, Web Dreams, Hubli, Karnataka, India. We have Mr. Kshitiz Dahal, research officer, SAWTI, Nepal. And we have Ms. Hang Tran, senior coordinator, Enhanced Integrated Framework. There are a couple of housekeeping rules. Let me just brief them. This session will be run until 4 p.m. After the introductory remarks from the chair, we would request the chair may allocate around 6 to 7 minutes to the panelists, followed by a Q&A session. After the Q&A session, there could be another 3 to 4 minutes for the panelists and for the concluding remarks from the panelists. We request the participant to keep their microphone muted and videos off. We also request you can raise your questions during the Q&A session. To ask the question, kindly use the raise hand option on Zoom. You can also write the question or your remarks on the Zoom chat box. Please mention to whom your question is directed to, followed by your name and designation. The chair may give you the floor or read out your question during the open discussion session. I'd also like to request our honorable panelists to keep their video on. Now I'd like to hand over the session to our honorable chair of this session, Dr. Pashraj Pandey. Dr. Pashraj Pandey, over to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mahtabuddin. Good afternoon. And let me join the organizer to welcome all of you in this session, Digital Connectivity and E-Commerce. Well, looking at the technological development in the last 30 years, advancement in information and telecommunication technology have significantly impacted the way in which goods, services, and informations are both sold and exchanged. And furthermore, we have been witnessing the proliferation of electronic or digital market and platforms. In fact, going digital has become a great opportunity for a country to leapfrog the development process. And the COVID pandemic has further provided impetus to the importance of digital economy. During the pandemic and the lockdown period, digital technology has emerged as a lifeline through virtual connectivity. Digital technology has moved the economy and consumption to online mode. Now, home has become the primary control unit. Children have virtual education at home. Telework from home has become a new work phenomena. Consumption has been reallocated from shopping mall to home through e-commerce. Social network has been reconfigured. And much of the dialogue and the expression of love and affinities is done digitally. The mode of relation between state and citizen has been redefined. And e-commerce has provided significant opportunities for a small producer, sellers, and consumers. For digital economy and e-commerce, better digital connectivity is a precondition. When we talk about connectivity, it includes both physical or hardware connectivity and software connectivity. Physical connectivity refers to the physical infrastructure that links countries and region within the countries. In our case, that is basically ICT infrastructure. And your physical infrastructure needs to be complemented with software aspects of connectivity. And by software, here I mean is government policies, institution, procedures, capacity, and system behind, meaning within the country and also at the border for international transaction. And looking at the recent development, particularly vaccination and others and adoption of other safety measures, it seems that life after pandemic is slowly returning back to normal. But for us, for developing countries, I mean the countries in BIMSTEC region face challenge of digital connectivity. I mean to discuss the issues of digital connectivity, the challenges of digital connectivity, and associated challenges with regard to e-commerce. As our organizer indicated, we have four distinguished speakers. We have two from private sector who are actually business into the business in digital economy, and one policy researcher, and one panelist, an international bureaucrat who supports LDC in building digital capacity. And as the organizer has indicated, they have allocated just 90 minutes for our session. And so during the first round, I'll ask our panelists to make general statement, maybe within 7-8 minutes. And in the second round, I'll pose specific questions to each of the panelists and to be answered in 3, 4, or up to 5 minutes. Then I'll open the floor for discussion. Well, I mean, I'm informed that Madam Hang Tran, I mean, she is quite busy and she has got just 1 hour. I mean, she has to leave these sessions by 3:30. So first, I give floor to Miss Tran. Miss Tran is responsible for coordinating the Asian ELDC portfolio, Haiti, and some West African Francophone speaking countries at the Executive Secretariat of EIF. And she has also some very good experience of policy making, particularly as a Director General of the Trade Department of Vietnam, and also as a trade diplomat. So, Madam, it's over to you. Floor is yours. Now you have 7 to 8 minutes for initial remarks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. Good afternoon to everybody. Nice to be meeting you, and nice to see some friends in the panel as well. So, Pandeli, hi. So we've been working together. Very briefly, thanks for the opportunity to speak. As you know, the Enhanced Integrated Framework is the unique global partnerships to support the least developed countries. We have 4 least developed countries in the BIMSTEC regions to integrate better in the global trade and benefit from it. So we evolved to our existence from 2009. Now we are in 2021, and e-commerce has been at the heart of the EIF for many reasons. And I very much like the confirmations from Dr. Bentley that going digital is a great leap for countries, and it's very much in the case of LDCs. Narrow it down to e-commerce. E-commerce today is a prevailing trend, both in domestic and international markets. And the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, reconfirms the very business case of e-commerce. Business nowadays, big or small, they will have a tool. They will continue and they have a tool, the digital part, in order to survive and in order to thrive. We have done quite a lot of analytic work in the EIF, but also we do work in the countries to support the countries to develop the e-commerce, both at the ecosystem, but also at the firm level, the enterprises level. What are takeaway from our interventions? There's two main enablers for the e-commerce. One is the ecosystem, and second is the digital capacity of enterprises themselves. And those are the two areas, the two enablers that the EIF has been working closely with LDC. Of course, you know, our effort is just one of the bigger effort going international or national. That's the point maybe I will further develop in the second round. Let me take a few minutes just to highlight what we are doing in the BIMSTEC regions, particularly in Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, and Nepal. So there are two major streams of work from EIF relating to e-commerce. One is we support the analytical work for policy making, for e-commerce prioritizations, and more importantly, for e-commerce mainstreaming in the National Development Plan and sector strategy. How to do it? One is we partner with UNCTAD, the United Nations on conference, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in Geneva, to undertake e-trade readiness assessment in most countries. So now we've done with Bangladesh, we've done with Bhutan, Nepal, and Myanmar. The readiness assessments look at the ecosystem for e-commerce and identify prioritized actions, what need to be done. The doing list is very, very long, but important is what are the pressing priorities that we need to tackle and do it in the most efficient way. The second dimension that EIF work in this first stream is mainstreaming e-commerce in National Development Plan through the very, very famous work of the EIF. We call it Diagnostic Trade Integration Study. So we support all the countries every 5 years, update their diagnostic integration strategy. It turned to be a national trade strategy in many countries, like in Nepal. They call it Nepal Trade Integration Strategy. The same in Bhutan. They just completed the Bhutan National Trade Strategy. Basically, it's the EIF diagnostic strategy. So in all these update, DTS update work, we analyze what are the opportunity and challenges for the countries in joining the global trading system, and how to benefit from it. And in all this work, the e-commerce chapter has been included. The ICT chapter, the new source of growth, has been included, looking at exactly how country can benefit from e-commerce. And beyond that, all the priority are integrated in the National Development Plan and sector strategy. So that's the first stream of work, analytical work for policy making and mainstreaming e-commerce in the National Development Plan. The second stream of work is more on country specific, looking at, from policy formulations, institutional and human capacity building. So in Bhutan, we are working on the project on e-infrastructure for trade and services. So basically, we support Bhutan to set up the e-regulations, e-service for business, one-stop information center, and then set up like an online auction for potato and cardamom. So those are the very kind of, we call it like catalytic work to support the government to go online, to provide services online. And the result is very encouraging. In Bhutan, we also support the government to put in place an e-commerce policy framework as in view of reduce the regulatory gaps. In Bangladesh, we're working with the Ministry of Commerce to provide trainings on e-commerce for policymakers, but also for entrepreneurs. In Myanmar, we are supporting the country to develop an e-commerce strategy, one-stop information portal, and more importantly, to support the government in different promotional campaign for e-commerce, dialogue with the private sector in promoting e-commerce. What are the bottlenecks from the private sector that the government need to do? So dialogue is instrumental to promote e-commerce. In Nepal, again, we support e-commerce law and mainstreaming e-commerce at the provincial level. At the regional level, we are working closely with UNESCAP in Bangkok and also in Delhi to support. One is building capacity for South Asia women entrepreneurs to do the e-commerce, from training to set up small platform for them, like a swimming pool for them to learn to swim before they go to the ocean. So Deepali, our partner, she will further elaborate on it. We're also working with UNESCAP in Bangkok to support a few countries. Here we have a Bangladesh in Nepal to see whether they can join the regional paperless trade system, basically like e-commerce facilitations, data exchange across the countries. Now, in conclusion, Chair, what have been achieved through our work? And so I think we may respond to some of your questions where we are. A lot of work has been done at the global level to narrow the regulatory gaps to the e-commerce policy or e-commerce strategy policy making. So regulatory gaps in terms of e-commerce has been narrowed down, and in view of facilitating e-commerce development. There has been observed improved capacity of regulatory bodies and intergovernment coordinations. So having concerted effort is critical. And we see that intergovernment coordinations is an important pathway to continue to follow. We've done quite a bit and we are proud of it, but a lot to be done. There's already kind of initial IT-enabled service provided by the countries. So that's also something very encouraging, contributing to the ecosystem. But gaps remains. Gap remains and challenge remain in many fronts. ICT infrastructure and service remain the huge challenge and require huge investment going beyond government capacity, in one government capacity, require a new model of working between government and private sectors. The logistic, also another challenge. Postal service remain, critical, important in moving forward. The distribute channel and then the e-payment is always the underdeveloped and remain the key challenge moving forward. Finally, the availability of e-commerce platforms for small businesses, local and regional e-commerce platform, and strengthening MSME capacity to join the e-commerce. So for us, there are key challenges that we need to look at in the next now and in the near future and in the way ahead. With that, I conclude this intervention. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Madam Han Tran, for picking up many issues of digital economy and e-commerce. And I appreciate, your views, particularly with regard to IT-enabled services. Now we're talking e-commerce and all this is okay. Well, to that particular issue, let me invite Deepali Godke. I think it's Deepali. I have rightly pronounced your name.
Please go ahead.
Deepali is a computer science engineer, and he has successfully implemented her business model in e-commerce and web development, maybe for last 2 decades. Deepali, now you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Pandit. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an entrepreneur and doing e-commerce business since 20 years. So I represent SMEs in this panel, and hence I would like to talk from SME and entrepreneur perspectives. So first, I would like to share some stats. The Bay of Bengal region countries account for nearly 1/4 of the global internet population, which is likely to grow in near future. And in spite of the fact that South Asia has very low internet penetration of around 36% compared to global average of 53%, the users are growing very rapidly. And nearly 23% are on active social media, and that is around 735 million social media users are there from our region. And this is the largest user base for mobile phones in the world, with 51% of unique mobile phone users, that is around 2.63 billion. LDCs are only 19%, having only 19% of population who use the internet, compared to the 87% in developed countries. And only 40% have access to the high-speed mobile and broadband network. Due to the COVID-19 crisis, but the mindset is changing, and people are forced to buy online, also forced to sell online due to fear of COVID going out and approaching the store. So I'm sure this is going to grow rapidly. However, there are, though it is at the cusp of internet and mobile telephony transformation, there is a poor literacy rates that make our population more susceptible to cybercrime, data thefts, user data and identity frauds, and there is propagation of even rumors and fake news. But still, India is the second highest digital optimism. India has the highest optimum people for in case of digital technology, because 79% of the people think that using digital technology is more useful than having a risk or facing any kind of crime. The Bay of Bengal region, with the largest share of mobile phone users in the world, is particularly susceptible for these crimes and frauds, because there is very necessity of having strong cyber laws and also creation of awareness related to different kind of cyber security threats. So the member countries should collaborate, cooperate, and ensure that there should be rapid capacity and capability building and exchange of skilled manpower, development of regional cyber ecosystem, joint representation at international market, and that should create more impact and grow the economy of overall BIMSTEC countries. So what I feel the need of the hour is We need affordable internet services because we have to penetrate to the grassroots level and at the SME, small and micro entrepreneur level also. We need affordable internet services. The speed of internet connection right now it is very less compared to the global average of 21.3 Mbps. And the e-commerce law should be a little bit eased so that registration of e-commerce businesses will be easier, and there should be need to reduce the mobile wallet fees and waiver charges, and kind of the push and pull service between the bank account and the wallet fees and the payment gateway. These transaction charges should be reduced. Also, there is a great need to build the capacity of developing countries to leverage e-commerce in their COVID-19 recovery plans. That's why we need to have mass cyber education drives so that we can educate and protect the interest of the population, especially those who will be joining the internet and e-commerce business for the first time. Logistics, as Ms. Hang stressed on, plays very important role because it is for both offline and online, and it is not only e-commerce is depend on it, but the whole trade due to its safety, security, reliability, transparency, and flexibility and efficiency. The success of the trade is strongly dependent on the logistics part. In India, UNDP is also taking a lot of efforts and taking care of onboarding women entrepreneurs on various marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart, and Gatha and all. So such activities should be carried out where SMEs should get the knowledge sharing and at the same time hand-holding support from organizations so that they'll be able to sell their products online. And even these platforms, SME friendly e-commerce platforms should be created more and more so that each and every individual cannot have their individual e-commerce portal, but they can go with the marketplaces which can offer them the less commission charges and user-friendly control panel to create their catalogs and help them sell online. Security and reliability measures on cybersecurity are very necessary because I run business and I know even on my website I get many kind of cyber attacks and I lost tremendous amount of money because of stolen credit cards, and I had that happened in year 2009, and I was not sure where to go and whom to approach because our cyber laws are still kind of subset of laws of traditional crimes. So traditional crimes done using the digital technology or internet are thought as a cyber crime, but cyber crimes are going beyond the traditional kind of thefts. There are latest lot of issues about especially user data and the protection of information, copyrights, intellectual rights. So all these awareness creations and policy and law creation is very important. The payment gateway remains a major challenge because e-commerce success depends on the way the payment can be accepted, such as cash on delivery is remaining almost 95%. So the mindset that we still use the cash and still we are handling the cash, maybe in near future we'll be using less cash and everything should slowly shift to the DigiCash and mobile wallets and through payment through e-banking, net banking, credit cards, debit cards, wire transfer, smart cards, etc. So when we conducted the workshop at Nepal and Bangladesh, we found that many women were telling that paying through payment gateway or accepting payments is a major challenge. So I'm sure now in this 1 year, there are various payment gateways have come, but still the onboarding process and the integration of payment gateway remains challenge for most of the e-commerce entrepreneurs. So there is a lot of scope for fintech companies to come forward to support the digital economy. In particular, e-commerce and e-payments are flourishing in many newly developed and developing countries. And the growth of SMEs and women entrepreneurs depends mainly on this. So, as per the Act in 2008, the cybercrime, again, I'm stressing on it because those laws are still way beyond our reach. Here, the criminal conduct is still considered as a normal crime. So, in India also, we need to have those major changes, consumer protection, and now, as Ms. Hang told, we have launched one portal, WeSellOnline.org, which will help the women entrepreneurs to sell online, to generate leads online. At the same time, it will help them to learn e-commerce from the basics. So I'll just share my screen and I'll just show you the portal. So this is the main portal, unscap.wesellonline.org, where we are going to have e-learning course, e-commerce portal. Already the e-learning course is ready, e-commerce manual and publications. So e-learning course will have various modules like introduction to e-commerce, right from the basics of e-commerce and digital marketing. We are going to take the women through the complete process of learning how to onboard on a platform. And then we have a portal, WeSellOnline.org. We stands for Women Entrepreneurs Sell Online.org. So this portal will have various categories like handicraft, textile, artificial jewelry, food, cosmetics, agriculture, etc. So here women can register themselves. Right now it is only for women. I'm sorry for men in the panel, but you can always buy from this and you can take advantage of the course which is available here. So this is running for 8 countries and we are sure this will be a very good ecosystem for women entrepreneurs to come online, exchange with other women entrepreneurs, and they can have business leads from all over the world, provided they have their proper catalog. And also we have some women entrepreneurs listed here, and this is the a simple sign up form what we ask them to sign up. So I think my 6 or 7 minutes are done. So,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity and I'm open for questions.
Okay.
I'll just stop sharing the screen. Could you see my screen? You could see my screen, right?
No, it has been stopped, so
Yeah.
this is fine.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
I think we have lost Dr. Boswas Pandey.
Okay.
Dr. Pandey, can you hear us?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. There is there's a lot of noises. Okay. Now it's okay. Okay. Thank you, Deepali, for very comprehensive presentation. Now I turn to Madam Maliha M. Qadir. She is founder and managing director of Sahaj. That is basically a platform where you could buy tickets and other this IT enabled services. Madam Quazir has some very vast experience of working with Morgan Stanley, Standard Chartered, Nokia, Vista, Vista Print. So she's going to bring us very, diverse perspective on the issues of e-commerce. Madam, now you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pandey. And, hello, everybody. Very nice to be here. An interesting topic of discussion. My startup, Shohoj, offers ride sharing, food delivery, ticket buying, and also truck booking services in Bangladesh. So I've been working for 6 years building this startup in Bangladesh. So you may say that I've been associated with the Bangladesh e-commerce industry from its very beginning. 2014, 13-14 is the time when a bunch of startups started in Bangladesh for the first time, e-commerce. So I have had the opportunity of seeing the industry grow. And having worked in foreign countries before, I have used digital services myself and seeing what it is like there and what it is like to build in a country like Bangladesh, which is just emerging. So I'll talk about the impact of COVID first. I don't have numbers, but I'll talk about from practical experience on the ground. Yes, COVID has been a blessing for digital adaptation. But the impact of COVID, how much it has taken us digitally forward is very different in different countries. And I think it depends on the education level ultimately and the level of COVID that happened. In Bangladesh, we have been fortunate. We had lockdowns for almost like 3 months. And after that, things started easing. And in general, the impact of COVID hasn't been so bad. And now it's almost to normalcy bad. So, the real pinch of, wanting to digitize, we felt it for 3 to 6 months. Were the companies ready? No. They adapted nicely, I wouldn't say a whole lot. Our company is different. We are very digitally driven people. Even then, we went through some big changes, but for us, it's easier because we are digitally driven. But most companies have not been digitally driven. Factories and manufacturers and all, they're very paper-based companies. So what I have seen is government adapt digitization, communication, as people were mentioning. Zoom has become widely popular, Microsoft Teams, this kind of communication tools. The need for meeting physically all the time and spending 3 hours in traffic, people seem to understand that, okay, we can avoid that, we can have a 5-minute Teams call. So there has been changes there. Very pleasantly, I have seen our courts are still using Zoom. Government is using Zoom. Shohaj built the COVID Tracer app for Bangladesh government. And I feel proud to say that we developed the app in 6 weeks' time. We coordinated with 5 government bodies, all digitally over Zoom, and delivered there's a lot of logic, a lot of things that happen inside the Tracer app in 6 weeks' time. In non-COVID times, in non-lockdown times, that would have been impossible to coordinate across so many divisions. I have fond memories of, we had to get sign up from 5 divisions on our agreement. And I have very proud and fond memories of having the minister himself and 5 different bodies all on a Zoom call, working on the agreement, shared our drive, and remarking together and getting it done fast. That is what we want to happen all the time in all our countries, right? So in terms of impact of COVID, if you look at numbers, generally I'm saying the digital payment has increased, which is an indicator of e-commerce, right? It has increased a lot, but we are talking about swiping card payments. When you look at digital commerce, just coming online, buying and paying for it has increased, but has there been a transformational boom? No. I know all the tech companies in Bangladesh who are selling things online. We have all grown, but is it big? No. And so the point is 3 to 6 months of pinch that you have to do things online is not enough to counteract the difficulties of high data cost and lack of education at a mass level. So companies with educated people, yes, we are still doing Zoom calls and all. Physical meetings are happening. Some meetings are happening over Zoom and Teams with banks, with other corporates. I have clients. I see that happening. But at a mass level, no. Schools are still closed. My children goes to a very, I guess, American school where there's a wonderful digital platform and they're learning totally online for a year. Has education been the same? No, but it has still been, they have still been able to learn, I would say 80% of the way. Other schools in Bangladesh? No, that hasn't happened. They have really struggled. Many schools are still closed. Some schools are open who can do digital education, but not a lot. So as a country, as companies, were we ready? No. Communication has made a step, but is this really going to sustain in the long run? I don't think so. Some impact will sustain, some growth, some positive impact of COVID has come to Bangladesh, no doubt about that. That will continue through. But is it really transformational? No. I would say developed countries have benefited a lot more from that. Unfortunately, they also got hit by COVID a lot. So it was like a whole thing together. You see, food delivery has had explosive growth in other countries because people are home and they're just clicking, right? They had the education. They had many things they were already using digitally. So they could take a bigger leap than countries like Bangladesh. I was mentioning the pain points. Why? Data cost is very high. Bangladesh has one of the highest data costs in the region and perhaps in the world. And education system. Education system is just, we really need to transform our education system to teach people to be curious, to try new things. So what is behind e-commerce adaptation? E-commerce adaptation worldwide and in our countries has been really driven by discounts. VCs are pouring in money. We are giving people low, cheap price products, artificially low, cheap price to change their habit, right? We are up against inertia of not trying something new. We are trying to do that. What happens when that reduces? We don't know yet. And Bangladesh type countries do not attract enough capital for that to be the main or sole catalyst for growth. What do we need? We need digital education. I have a lot of respect for all these platforms that are teaching women, teaching men, e-commerce and digital marketing. Sure. What we need to transform is the education system. When kids, grown-ups, when we use digital tools for learning, which is compulsory, school is compulsory. If the school says you have to use digital tools, we have to have Zoom calls with teachers, even when COVID is over. We have a bunch of Zoom calls during the week. We as citizens, we just become hooked to technology. We love it because we know how efficient it is. It is ingrained in our system. We know how easy it is. We're not fearful of clicking somewhere and trying new things. We learn that. So the education system really needs to incorporate digitization big time. Second, government's way of doing work. Government people, the employees of the government, have to use digital technology. That is the first thing I think donor agencies should come and make us do. We don't have proper email addresses even, right? Government's way of doing work is very manual and many paper-based, and so is for most companies in our countries. If the government, having the power it has, they start adapting digital technologies themselves in their own way of doing work, they will understand how fun it is, how much it makes your life easier, and they will be able to then create the proper policies that spurs digitization. A lot of good work has happened in Bangladesh for spurring digitization, but it could become 10x easier if the regulators themselves use ride sharing, themselves use food delivery as users, and also use Zoom and all in their own way of doing work. They would then know at a very deep level where the issues come and where policies need to come in to overcome difficulties. Similarly, we need to make certain things compulsory. If we want to take a leap, we have the underlying issues of high data connectivity cost, underlying issues of educating, mass level education not being so strong. To overcome that, we need to make certain things compulsory. Digital payments for utilities, for example, should become compulsory. That is the way. These are like small steps, step by step. If we make certain very important services compulsory for digital payments, then people will be, and people are smart, our people, if you see how MFS has grown at mass level, farmers are just clicking, they don't even know how to read and write, but they're just clicking, they're using things. These are genuinely smart people. If you make utility payment, for example, compulsory on digital payment platforms, they'll do it. And that is the way for our countries to take a big leap towards that. And lastly, I would say making digital signature compulsory is another enabler, because without that, a lot of things stay manual because we need paperwork. So overall, COVID has been a blessing, obviously, for our countries as well. There has been a lot of leap in communication using digital communication. And there some things banks have been doing factoring over email invoices supposedly as well, which is great. So some changes have come. Growth has happened in digital payments and digitization, sure, but it hasn't seen the leaps and bounds we seem to think it has, because we are looking at the developed countries where I think it has been higher, the dividend of COVID. And how to overcome it is really bringing digitization in the education sector, in the way we teach people, and also in government's way of doing work, and making certain things compulsory to be done digitally. Thank you.
Dr. Pandey,
Well,
Miss Malika is finished. Yeah, you may continue.
okay, I think I have bad connection. Thank you, Maliha, for sharing your experience on digital economy during the period of pandemic and a lockdown. Now I turn to Mr. Kshitiz Dahal. Kshitiz is a research officer in South Asia was in trade economics and environment. And now he's engaged in Nepal, the status of Nepal's e-commerce, and also problem and challenges is associated with promoting e-commerce in Nepal. Kshitij, now you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. It is a pleasure and privilege to be here, to be able to contribute to this distinguished forum, and to be able to share my thoughts on this very important topic of digital connectivity and e-commerce. First, I would like to talk about the state of e-commerce in Nepal very quickly, and in that, if the time permits, I would quickly touch upon the fundamentals when it comes to enhancing digital connectivity and e-commerce. So let me start by saying that the use of ICT in Nepal has seen a rapid growth in the last few years. To cite an example, the internet penetration rate, which stood at around 10% in 2010, has now significantly increased to upwards of 65%. This proliferation in ICTs has also resulted in digital development, as well as tremendous growth in e-commerce over the last couple of years. The growth of e-commerce is not only limited to the magnitude of e-commerce transactions, but there have been the expansion in the scope of e-commerce services as well. E-commerce in Nepal is no longer only purchasing and selling of goods through online medium, but it has expanded to include several innovative and creative services, such as logistics, food delivery services, the ride-sharing platforms, and other many digitally enabled services. And COVID-19, while generally being a disruptor to most of the economic activities here, it has provided a push to the e-commerce sector in Nepal. And COVID-19, I think, has not only increased the magnitude of e-commerce activities in Nepal, I think it has somewhat altered the way e-commerce is done in Nepal. What I mean is, before COVID-19, the predominant form of e-commerce activity in Nepal was done through cash and delivery mode. but some evidence show that the COVID-19 has resulted in increased uptake of digital payments. To cite an example, a leading e-commerce firm in Nepal reported that during their latest shopping festival, around 40% of their e-commerce transactions was done through digital payments like credit cards, debit cards, and other digital wallets. I think this number is significant given that the similar number for the last year was only 11%. So I think there is the change in the way e-commerce is being done here. However, despite the growth of e-commerce and digital development in e-commerce still remain at nascent stage in Nepal. E-commerce is mostly predominantly centered in the capital city of Kathmandu and has very, very minimal presence outside the valleys. And if we look at and our digital development in e-commerce lacks way below the frontiers witnessed in other countries. So obviously there are challenges to be overcome if we want to take the digital development, digital connectivity, and e-commerce further. And previous speakers have already articulated many of the challenges which are also present in Nepal. So I'll just like to briefly sum up the challenges. The primary challenges for the development of digitization of economy and e-commerce have been the inadequate infrastructure. I'm talking about physical infrastructure, virtual infrastructure, digital infrastructure here. Similarly, the other challenge has been a somewhat antiquated legislative, regulatory, and policy framework. The regulatory framework has not been able to catch up with the recent advances, recent developments coming out of the digitization of economy. And similarly, the other problem is the dearth of digital skills and the capacity constraints seen in private sector, especially their lack of capacity to embrace digitization is another problem. And I think, as mentioned by previous speakers, these are not problems exclusive to Nepal. These problems share commonalities with many LDCs and other low-income countries. Although I said that the policy framework is lacking, there have been some important initiatives from the government. Way back in 2007, the government came up with the Electronic Transactions Act, which gave legal validity to electronic records, electronic transactions, digital signatures, electronic authentication, paving the way for electronic transactions. And after the dramatic growth in e-commerce activities, at least in Kathmandu, the government came up with an e-commerce strategy in 2019, both to facilitate the growth of e-commerce as well as to protect consumers from the fraudulent activities that could happen in online sphere. So, regarding digital connectivity, the government has also come up with many policies such as information and communications technology policy. There is the broadband policy, and there is also the digital Nepal framework, which aspires to leverage digital technologies for accelerated growth. It encompasses 8 sectors and 80 different initiatives. However, as important as these initiatives are, Nepal does not have a clear framework and vision when it comes to cross-border digital connectivity and cross-border e-commerce. Nepal has not really made its stance clear on several integral issues that are very important to the digital connectivity and e-commerce, such as in the areas of cross-border data flows, data privacy when it comes to cross-border data flows, the standard for cyber securities, online consumer protection, dispute settlement mechanism for cross-border trade, and etc. So these are lacking, and the bilateral, multilateral, the regional trade agreements that Nepal is part of, they are somewhat antiquated when it comes to the provisions related to digital trade. So against that background, I would quickly like to touch upon what are the fundamentals when we talk about enhancing digital connectivity and cross-border e-commerce in the Bay of Bengal region. So I think the region has a tremendous potential for the development of digital connectivity and the development of cross-border e-commerce. However, I think that would require a much better digital integration, I think, which is currently lacking. And when I speak about digital integration, it is basically the coherence in our policies, strategies, rules, regulations, principles, and interoperability of our technologies, of our standards, of our digital standards, of our processes. So these things are crucial. And judging from the recent trends in the digital trade, and looking at the recently introduced trade agreements, which are now beginning to contain a separate chapter on e-commerce, some topics stand out as being more important than others, especially important to the issue of digital connectivity and cross-border e-commerce has been the issue of cross-border data flows. So it's too less data protection. If there is too less of a data protection, then it jeopardizes digital trust. Whereas having too stringent of requirement for data protection can severely impede digital trade. So if there are other important issues such as data protection, such as regarding the protection of source code among the digital companies. The region wants to enhance digital connectivity and cross-border e-commerce. I think these things have to be integral to our discussion. So we have to the challenge is to come up with contains rules and principles that is acceptable to all the countries, that is followed by all, given the divergent possible divergent policy stances among different countries. I think that is a major challenge. And I would like to conclude my first
Okay.
portion of this speech by just putting a framework that I recently saw in this art networking paper, which could provide some insight on thinking about digital connectivity and e-commerce. So basically, they've got this paper by Andrew Mitchell and Neamis. They talk about 5 pillars as being fundamental to digital connectivity and cross-border e-commerce. So these 5 pillars are, the first one is reducing current existing digital to correcting barriers to digital trade, which could be measures such as cumbersome licensing procedures, measures such as excessive data restrictions, measures such as excessive privacy standards. So that is the first pillar. The second would be regarding digital trade facilitation, which would include measures such as paperless trade, which would include exchange of trade data and documents through online mediums. That would also include interoperable and secure payment systems. That would include electronic authentication and verification, common standards on electronic signature, electronic contracts. that would also include an efficient logistics infrastructure, because goods have to be delivered physically as
Kshitij,
well. So that is
could you
also
please
essential.
wrap up?
And the third pillar is regarding, yes, I am almost about to finish. So the third pillar is about digital trade regulation and digital trust policies, which I have already kind of explained before. The fourth is digital development and inclusion, which is basically ensuring that everyone has access to digital technologies, digital opportunities, digital infrastructure, and ensuring that the benefits of digital trade, cross-border e-commerce are widely distributed. And lastly, the last pillar is of institutional coordination, whereby there is a robust mechanism for coordinating for ensuring the framework is implemented, that the principles are followed, capacity building is done. I think these 5 pillars give us a very simple way of understanding this issue better. And I conclude my discussion here, and will get back with the second round. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kshitij, and thanks all for panelists for first round of discussion. Now let me move to second round of discussion. And in second round, let me turn to Madam Hang Tran. Madam, you talked about, I mean, you mentioned, I mean, in your statement, ecosystem and digital capacity are the prerequisite for digital economy. So here, my question is, how you find least developed countries of BIMSTEC region on the readiness to adopt digital economy? And what are the priority areas to improve readiness of these countries? Madam Ang, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just give me a second because of the other meeting going on, and I need to unmute, but it's, yeah, okay, let me put it. Sorry for that inconvenience. Your questions about how is what is the readiness of the countries to go
countries
for,
and also the priority areas to improve the readiness.
okay. I think from, country has embarked on digital economy in one way or another. There are different speed, different way of doing so. But as I mentioned earlier, and I think other panelists have rightly confirmed the case, that we are living in a digital economy now at the country level and global level. But we have not fully benefits or cope with the digital economy. We are not well prepared. In many, we live with it, but we are not fully prepared. There's still many gaps in different fronts. Let me cite it a few. The infrastructure gaps, the ICT infrastructure, the internet penetrations in countries in the regions is still a long way to go in order to keep up with, in order to enable the economy from the public sector to the private sector to be fully digitalized, put it that way, using everything online. Today, luckily, we don't have it like a cut-off, but very often you can see in other parts, the conversation could not be as smooth as we are today. Trade logistics and trade facilitation, Sister Hill. I would like to bring to your attention a new regulations coming in for all the LDC to export like a small parcels to the post, like an e-commerce to the post. They need to provide advanced custom data to the custom from the importing countries, but also from exporting countries. And many LDC, they are not ready yet. The postal service, the postal service are not yet integrated with the custom. And we are working with UPU and UNCTAD to see how we can support LDC to have like an integrated interface between the custom and ports. But that's another thing I say, you know, in terms of logistic, but trade facilitations and regulation gaps is still there in order to make countries like ready to fully participate in the digital economy. And human resources is another gaps. I like the point Kaji from Bangladesh mentions, you know, is in a company or something, few people can easily, you know, go online talk, but we need at the firm level, in order to go online, you need digital transformations. Digital transformation and do it in a sustainable way is a big challenge, even in developed countries. Here in Switzerland, where, you know, Geneva, I follow a training on digital transformations, and most of the firms here in Switzerland, they have a problem in digital transformation, especially the change management, getting people engaged, because people feel like, you know, I don't go online, my privacy, data privacy, so on and so forth. And, you know, it's go back to the traditional way. So digital transformation is another, the challenge that we need to tackle. And then last but not least, there should be a no way, the new way of working together. There should be trust building. People have been doing e-commerce to social network, social media, but there's no regulations. They build on trust. That leads to another questions, that what are the right regulation in the right place? For example, in some countries there's an over regulations, but then in the area we need some kind of, you know, enforcement of rules is a lacking. I take the example of regulatory, is that some countries request that businesses they need to register for e-commerce. They already have a business registrations, but in order to do e-commerce, they need to do e-commerce registration. Is it burdensome? Because nowadays everybody do e-commerce. Another countries is they need, like, in order to export, you need to have like a export license, not export licensing, but the bill need to, the order need to be validated by the regulatory body. It could not be done with e-commerce, because you accept the order, you need to validate, payment is done, the order is confirmed. You cannot send it to the regulatory body and wait for 24 hours for your order to be validated from import and export. So that's kind of, you know, old-fashioned doing of trade need to be changed. Again, it goes back to the regulatory gaps, frameworks, and the ecosystem. Finally, public and private sectors for infrastructure and dialogue. We've been doing like a dialogue with the private sector and discover many things that private sector encounter, but the policy is not there yet in order to accompany the private sectors. So in brief, yes, countries are in the digital economy, but in order for least developed countries and developing countries to fully benefit from digital economy and also overcome some kind of, you know, challenges, that's still a long way to do, especially in the area of regulations, infrastructures, and public and private investment, and human capacity. So for that, I would like to thank you.
Thank you, madam, for your positive and optimistic note. Now let me turn to Madam Deepika Goddard K. Well, madam, you will discuss about identity threat, crime, frauds, and also the issues of data privacy. I mean, under that scenario, do you think women entrepreneurs and women enterprises will continue in digital path?
I'm
And
running.
if not, then how can women enterprises could benefit out of this digital economy and particularly in e-commerce?
Okay. Thank you, Pandesa, for your question. Actually, I'm a woman entrepreneur. I'm running my business since year 2000. This April, I'll complete 21 years in this field. And my identity theft has not happened, but my photographs, because I have done modeling for my website. I sell saris also online. And my photographs have been copied on various portals, not for any bad reason, but they have used those photographs as a model. I'm not a model, I'm entrepreneur. Just because it was my portal, I did modeling, but I have been used for that. So actually, I used to feel really bad. And even sometimes my number was put on some bad channels, and people used to call me for some kind of abuse or some kind of a cyber bullying also was happening with me. But then the benefits what I was getting out of this business, the name I got, because I belong to a small city, Hubli, which is a second tier city in North Karnataka in India. For a place like Hubli with two children, running a business from home was such a big challenge. Or doing any job outside, 8 hours full-time job was beyond my capacity because I had family responsibility also. So definitely, though there are various threats, women get the convenience of working from home, and I don't think anybody is going to stop them for these threats, because there is always solution also for all these kind of cyber crimes. Nowadays, there are regulations have come which will definitely stop your identity and even copy of photographs and data. See, there was just news for maybe 4 days that WhatsApp is going to take your data, and most of the people moved to Signal. So users are also very intelligent, but then creating awareness is a very good I mean, that is the ultimate solution. Right now also I see that what saris I sell on my portal, 10 other portals have copied the same photograph, but they're actually not delivering the same sari, same dress. They are delivering much lower quality and some different item, because they are cheating the people. Such cheaters will be there in each business. I mean, whatever traditional businesses are there, there also a lot of cheating and threats are there. But that doesn't mean we leave those businesses. And I'm sure, though there are so many kind of cyber crimes are happening, when the cyber laws will be in place and there will be strong punishments for all these crimes, people will definitely come forward and start selling online and also buying online.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deepika. Sorry, Deepali. Go. Now I turn to the last panelist, but not the least, Malia Quadri. Well, madam, you are selling some IT-enabled services in Bangladesh. Maybe in entertainment, or maybe food. And my question to you is, how do you see the prospect of expanding your business to BIMSTEC region? That is, for example, selling IT enabled services. So now you are selling tickets, cinema tickets. Is it possible to sell, say, tourism package? Maybe in BIMSTEC region. And similarly, maybe you talked about. I mean, you gave a quite great emphasis to the education system, particularly this digital knowledge and skill. Is it possible to sell that education service through IT in BIMSTEC region? Or maybe you can take the case of uh, medical services. So do you see any prospect, I mean, for expanding your business or for this intra-regional e-commerce and intra-regional IT enable trade of IT enabled services? Over to you, madam.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a challenging question. I have different views on it. First is this region doesn't have, we have giant players in this region, right? Who are far ahead of the rest of the region in terms of digitization and proliferation of e-commerce. So e-commerce is largely driven by venture capital, because what is happening is we are forcing people to change their way of doing things by giving them discounts at a lower price. We're saying it's cheaper, please come buy online, and there's a business model towards profitability after that, right? There's a lot of investment needed. And I have raised money multiple rounds for my company Shahoj from various international investors, right? International investors are not interested in the smaller countries in this region. There's a very low level of interest. Look, I'm all funded by international investors, but I know the struggle I go through when I raise money, because all the focus is on the very big countries, because the very big countries still have a lot of opportunities for digitization and for commerce to grow. So now when access to capital is not the same across the region, us, the smaller players who are far below in the curve of digitization, for us to export our services, call it tickets or whatever, to other countries in the region is not possible. It's unrealistic. Because we don't have that kind of capital to fight the big player who can just flood the money with discounts and all and just take it. So I don't think it is realistically possible. If there's a very innovative service that hasn't already happened in the big neighboring countries where people raise money at billion-dollar valuation and from billions of dollars of venture capitalists coming in, if we can come up with something very innovative that is not that they haven't done yet, yes, sure, there are ways. Now, I have a different view on this whole thing about cross-border trade and all, particularly when it comes to e-commerce. I believe in protectionism. This is a very, very big upcoming industry. The whole world will go there. We need to protect our local players and let them grow. Because this, like as I was saying, that there are big countries in this region, in the world as well. The American all are far ahead and they have trillion-dollar whatever companies there, right? They can just come and capture our markets very easily. They have the tech, they have everything. Setting up something and selling in Bangladesh, if we open it up, it's very easy for them. Well, it is open. We have foreign players in Bangladesh, right? It is very, and I have been fighting foreign players for ride sharing, food delivery. We have very big global players that we have been fighting. And I know how difficult it is to fight against the kind of capital, the kind of technology that they have. So if we don't protect our local industries, they'll never be there. It's just not possible, given how far ahead in this industry, AI, ML, technology, all these things, given how far ahead, we have players from big countries already operating in like 90% of what is there of e-commerce, different sectors to do. If we don't protect our local companies, there will be no local companies. And there will be no employment. These foreign players anybody in Bangladesh, no knowledge transfer happens, nothing happens. Gluttony of some VC money coming in, giving discounts and capturing the market, throwing away the local players. That's what happens. So in this region, there are a lot of small countries with who are far behind in this digitization curve. And I think it is really important for us to protect our technology. Now, cross-border collaboration should happen and can happen. It can happen at the policy level. I worked with the Bangladesh government on ride-sharing policy, and I saw how difficult it is. And I felt like we could really learn from neighboring countries that have done this ride-sharing policy years before we have, for example. So when we are coming up with different policies, we should look and learn from our neighbors, because largely there's a lot of similarities amongst our countries in terms of how people work, how still the mass level countries work. So there's a lot we can learn and adapt from each other from looking at the policies that others have done. The other area where we should collaborate is really in training. There's a huge dearth of engineers in all these countries that we are talking about, except for certain big countries. So I mean, generally the world has a dearth of engineers, right? So the countries that have engineers that, with that kind of knowledge of building scalable infrastructure and all, there can be collaboration at a government level of really having trainings. There are some collaborations happening, I'm aware of, but I haven't seen any benefits of it as an industry practitioner. So maybe the private sector needs to be involved in this. Input needs to be taken from private sector in what kind of trainings and all we can leverage from. So to conclude, I believe in protectionism. Otherwise, these industries will not grow at all. And secondly, collaboration really needs to happen at a government level on understanding policies, looking at each other's policies and see what worked, adapting from there, and also that we don't reinvent the wheel every time, and also collaborations in terms of training. Thank you.
Thank you, Maliha. Well, I mean, you said if there is really very new innovation, then it's possible, Samni, to penetrate in regional markets. But I mean, I have full trust on the creativity of South Asians. In fact, their creativity goes beyond the boundary of the existing market system, existing digital market. So I have, I mean, full faith on South Asian creativity. But here I'm sorry to suggest to you to say that you suggested us to ban Pathao. That's the ride-sharing platform, and which is joint venture of Bangladesh, to ban in Nepal. Right? That's your suggestion. Well, if you're talking about protectionism, then we should ban this Pathao in Nepal.
So
okay.
I really need to correct yourself. Pathao is my competitor, and I have a lot of respect for them. So I don't want to be quoted in that way. That's not what I'm talking at a policy level. It just becomes a bit difficult because they are my competitors.
So my request is to review your that statement on protectionism.
No, I won't review.
Or maybe we can put it selective liberalization.
We can,
instead of protectionism.
Yes, we can
selective liberalization.
We fight Uber jointly in Bangladesh, right? And my Pathao friends will also say how difficult it is to find, a fight against a billion-dollar company pouring in a huge amount of money, right? So I do stand firm on my ideas of protectionism. There can be situations, cases when there is no domestic player and something that the citizens need. Of course, that can be allowed. So protectionism can be worked out in many ways. It's not a very sexy topic, I understand, amongst policymakers, but it is realistic. It is a point to be made in economics for protectionism. We have seen protectionism work in many industries. And so I would say it is needed. If there's a domestic player in Nepal, I don't know about the Nepal market. If there's a domestic player in Nepal and they had invested a lot and they were giving a good service, maybe they should have gotten some protectionism. I don't know the details of it. I have not looked there, but I would say that yes, you can look at protectionism, you should look at protectionism, but yes, you can bring in clauses and all in there.
Okay. Let me inform you. I mean, there are a lot of pressure or reservations on the part of taxi drivers for this. I mean, but how? Okay, let me turn to Mr. Dahal. Kshitij, okay. You talked about, I mean, in your concluding part, you talked about, I mean, 5 prerequisites for this e-commerce, right? I mean, for the development of e-commerce. Okay, my question is how this regional cooperation, I mean, working together at regional level, facilitate to achieve, I mean, those conditions, or facilitate in promoting e-commerce. Over to you, Chitish.
Thank you, sir, for this very pertinent. Thank you, sir, for this very pertinent question. I think regional cooperation can be instrumental in enhancing digital connectivity as well as e-commerce in the region, especially given that there is no multilateral, there is no global rules, no global framework regarding digital trade, as WTO has largely failed until now to come up with a comprehensive rule. There is a joint statement initiative going on for the last couple of years, but I think it still has a lot of contentious issues to solve. So I think the digital trade will mostly be addressed by bilateral and regional trade frameworks in the coming days, as we have seen in the recent trade agreements such as Singapore, Australia Digital Economy Agreement or RCEP. So these new trade agreements all include chapters on digital economy, chapters on e-commerce. So I think the BIMSTEC region or the broader Bay of Bengal region has a potential for enhancing this ecosystem through collaboration. As mentioned by Ms. Kadir earlier, maybe unmitigated liberalization may not be the best solution, but policies, but cooperation can take place through different avenues. I think some of the avenues for cooperation could be capacity building of SMEs, capacity building of SMEs, so that, as she mentioned, that the e-commerce ecosystem does not fall prey to only big investors. So that could be an area where collaboration could take place. Similarly, there could be collaboration on the development of digital standards, which can contribute to digital trade in the region, especially given that ASEAN already has a digital economy framework. They can share their experiences regarding what works and what measures are challenging to implement. That could be done. And I guess ultimately regional cooperation can start by talking about a framework that that could mitigate current barriers to digital trade, that could create coherence in our policy, our strategies, rules, principles, and that could lead to creation of interoperable payment systems, technologies, processes, and that could lead to better digital trust. Digital trust could be another area where collaboration could be sought. Best practices on cybersecurity protection could be an area for collaboration. And so the better collaboration and cooperation can be an important tool for digital development and inclusion in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitish. So now we have finished the round of discussion among the panelists. Now let me open the floor.
Dear Dr. Pandey, sorry to interrupt, but our next session is at 4:30 p.m. So actually, our session was supposed to end by 4 p.m. Dhaka time. So we may extend this session up to 10 minutes, like 4:10 Dhaka time, which is
4:10. So now we have 12 minutes, right?
Right, sir.
Okay. Okay, let me open the floor. And could you please assist me in this floor discussion?
Okay, dear Dr. Pandey, actually, we do not see any hands raised in the session or any questions in the chat box. But if you allow, then we can ask if the participants, if you want to ask any questions, you could be very brave. So we can see one hand, but there's no name. If you could unmute yourself and identify yourself, and please ask the question very briefly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, we can. Yeah.
please.
Okay, thank you. Myself, I'm a retired Commodore Qazi Umdad from Bangladesh Navy. I do some independent research. So it's an general opinion or query to Mr. Dr. Salim Raihan, if he's present. Of course, with the chair, with your permission, just I'll take 1-2 minutes. If Dr. Salim Rahan is there or Dr. Pavid, are they present? Just to
yes, but we would really appreciate if you can make the comment relevant to this session, please. Otherwise, we have other sessions where, you know, if you don't have any specific comment.
I tried to place my comment in other session, but I didn't find it anywhere as such. So
Can
this
we
is
then please allow, you know, because these sessions, there are specific panelists who are discussing on digital connectivity and e-commerce. We'd really appreciate if you can confine your comments to this topic, please. And if you have any other comments related to other topic, we'd really request you to spare, you know, do it in other session. I hope you understand the constraint because we have very limited time. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Then in that case, I will take some other time if I get time, opportunity. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you for your understanding.
We do not see any other hands.
So we already exhausted our time. So I think it's better to conclude this session. Is it okay, Mahtam? Is it okay?
Yes, sir. We can extend up to another 9 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in these sessions, we have very productive and engaging discussion among the panelists, particularly on issues of ecosystem, digital capacity, and the required policy interventions, particularly at national level, to promote digital economy and e-commerce. Well, with regard to intra-regional trade or intra-regional e-commerce or trade in IT-enabled services. Well, maybe this region may not be ready to liberalize these two sectors, e-commerce and IT-enabled services in a blanket manner. Of course, we can have selective strategy, or we can cooperate. Rather, we can cooperate on win-win basis on the sector where all the countries of the region can benefit. And for that, one could be that ASEAN digital framework could be one guiding document. We can learn from. There are other bilateral this framework, the digital framework, and other sub-regional digital framework. We can learn some lessons out of those regional and sub-regional cooperations before liberalizing this e-commerce and IT-enabled services in the region. Nonetheless, for win-win strategy, our cooperations could be on building digital skills among academic institutions to upgrade the skill of our labor forces or of our professionals. We are going to participate in digital area. The second area of cooperations could be sharing of experience, knowledge, and skill among the BIMSTEC countries in areas of e-government and use of digital technology in providing public services, such as transport services, water supply, energy services, or law enforcement, education, medical aid services. Okay, we can share our experience. And the third area could be that the real-time information and data sharing. Particularly, that is much more important during the period of this pandemic, COVID pandemic, real-time data sharing. And another could be on building digital infrastructure, particularly that's cloud computing or any others, ICT infrastructure, which could complement our digital skill. That is another area. And another and fifth area could be cooperation on the issues of cyber security. The Deepali, raised the issues of that that some others company and just having her identity and having her product. So maybe on that area we can cooperate with each other, including cyber security. And another much more area could be, for that's the prerequisite, that is regional digital payment. That could be another area. We can have that system for regional digital payment. Why should we use, say, a MasterCard? Can we have a digital regional payment system? So that could be another area, which will be, win-win strategy for BIMSTEC countries. And another would be, I think on my part, last suggestions, but not the list. So particularly that's the sharing of experience and building capacity of the government to levy and collect taxes on e-commerce. If you don't do any of those things, then government is going to lose a major source of revenue. So that would be another area of cooperation. That basically I'm sharing experience. And here's my suggestions and requests, and particularly participants from India and also the Indian governments. Here India may take lead and share its experience on building digital infrastructure and also skills, developing skills on this digital technology. India can lead, and in BIMSTEC countries. So with this note, I thank you all participants, the panelists, Deepali, Han, Chitish, and Maliha. Sorry, and also
Thank
thanks
you.
and also thanks our organizer for providing us this forum. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Over
much,
to
sir.
you.
everybody.
Over to
Thank
you,
On
you.
behalf of
Bye
organizer.
bye.
Okay, bye. And
Thank
Thank
namaste.
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.
sir, on behalf of SANEM, let me cordially thank Dr. Prasad Pandya, our chair of the session. We also extend our